Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jenny. I want to acknowledge my co-author, John, who's sitting in the back. I hope this presentation will be really relevant to the conversation so far. I think it addresses some of the questions that came up in the Q&A. I just didn't want to spoiler alert my whole presentation by chiming in with some of the findings that we have. If you're not familiar with the Gallup panel, we're about 20 years old. It is a nationally representative probability-based panel. We have about 100,000 members. It's a multi-mode panel, which means for individuals who don't have internet access, we offer them an alternative mode of responding, typically mail, but also phone if we need to turn something around a little bit more quickly. I'm going to be talking about our recruitment today. Our recruitment primarily uses address-based sampling and RDD. Address-based sampling really gives us the ability to target specific demographic groups that we need to recruit into the panel, to replenish our panel in a way that we just can't do with RDD. It's just too inefficient, too costly to try to reach certain demographic groups with RDD. And I think, as other people mentioned already today, we have the same struggles with trying to replenish our panel with young people, with non-white respondents, with low education respondents. So that's where a lot of our address-based targeting is really focusing. We're always trying to improve the design of those materials. We're improving the design on our visuals, how we're messaging the brochures, how we're using incentives, sampling strategies, and our non-response follow-ups. I'm going to specifically talk about the messaging today. And we know that in those materials, we're really trying to pull a lot of different levers in terms of what is going to motivate people to participate across probably a very diverse set of different motivations, and then also barriers. People have different concerns for participating. So we're trying to create materials that tap into as much of that as possible. And we also know that recruiting to a panel is unique. This is different from a one-time survey request. We're trying to convince people to participate ongoing and across a really, at least for us, a very wide variety of topics. So our mailing sequence, we have a pre-notification postcard that just kind of says, hey, watch for something fun coming in the mail. There's going to be a little reward inside of it. We then have a brochure mailing, which includes all the information about joining the panel. There's always some kind of prepaid incentive in there, a link to register online, a bunch of FAQs, and then some sort of promise of a postpaid incentive. And then we have 2 reminder postcard follow-ups after that. All of our materials, we're really trying to change up the messaging so that we're, again, tapping into those different levers, but also trying to create a cohesive campaign across all of the different mailings. I forgot to bring my visual aid up here. I had a little visual aid to show what the brochure looks like. Ellen, will you reach under my computer? Like maybe hold it. It's hard to visualize what it looks like, but it folds out. Thank you, Ellen. That's a very good Vanna White. So the inside shows kind of, the description of here's what we're asking you to do. Here's the link to go online and participate. There's usually more information about the panel on the outside flaps. And then the back of it is really where we're doing our experimenting, where we're trying to change up the message. And then on the back, which is that bottom panel, that's where the address goes, in case you're kind of trying to visualize what this looks like. So I'm going to share the results of 3 different experiments that we did over the last couple years. One was for a Black recruit, one was for a young recruit, and one was for a Hispanic recruit, where we are specifically trying to use the address-based sample to target households predicted to have those characteristics. ABS isn't perfect. There's flaws. It's not everyone who's predicted actually ends up having that criteria that we're looking for, but it's a heck of a lot more effective than just throwing sample into the field and hoping that we get certain characteristics. So the first one, which was our Black recruit, was in the fall of 2021 to 21,000 households. We oversampled Black households, and we experimentally tested two different brochure versions. So these are the different versions. Version 1 is our FAQ version, which is something we had been sending out for a couple of years, and we just had more of our FAQs on the back. And then version 2, we decided, let's try something different this time. Let's try to really target to the audience that we're trying to reach. So we have a little blurb back here. We're calling it kind of our mission, purpose, research story. One is about COVID. Again, this was in 2021, still very salient. And then we also had a message about the work that we're doing at the Gallup Center on Black Voices, hoping that this would be of interest to our respondents, maybe would help build some trust and feel a connection to what we're trying to accomplish. So these are the results. The top two bars in the lighter shading are the households predicted to be Black by their brochure type, and then the bars on the bottom are the households not predicted to be Black. Where you see the green highlighting, that is the recruitment rate. So within the Black group, the brochure that had the FAQs actually performed the best in terms of the recruitment rate, and then also the percent of people we recruited who were Black. And then within the non-Black group, we saw the opposite, sort of that mission story moment actually performed the best. So it did not go as we expected. We were really hoping that this message was going to be great. For us, the question is, was it the messaging that was the problem, or was it the way in which we presented it? The next recruit that we did was a young adult recruit. This was in 2023, again, oversampling young households. This one, we changed things up. The first version that we had still had that mission story moment, again, with the Center on Black Voices. We had an image which tied to other images and other recruits. We had a second version where we showed some data points, and we had a little, what we call a mission blurb. And then the last one just had all data graphics. We found that the combination of the infographic and then the image was most effective. So we had the best recruitment rate, and we also had the highest percentage of young people when we used that. And that was true of both the young and the not young sample, in terms of sample predicted to be young, not predicted to be young. So our takeaway from this, or at least our hypothesis, was maybe less was more. We managed to, instead of telling a long story that requires a lot of words, try to, kind of squeeze in some data points, a short blurb about mission, a picture into a smaller space. Maybe that was easier for people to kind of digest and see what this is all about. And then the third one was a Hispanic recruit conducted in, again, fall of 2023 to 30,000 households. Again, we oversampled Hispanic households. And this one we tested out sending English-only brochures and sending an English brochure and a Spanish brochure. Everybody got English and Spanish in their postcard mailings. And then we had two different brochure versions. So these are the Spanish versions. On the back, we had, this one showed data points. We had one data point on politics and one data point on immigration. We had a lot of debate around what are the right data points to try to not bias who decides to join the panel. We landed on some things that we felt like, whatever side of the fence you fall on, maybe this will be of interest to you. And then these are the results. I'm just showing here so that the graph doesn't become totally overwhelming, the results from the sample flagged to be predicted Hispanic. So the top is the lighter bars are showing people who we sent Spanish materials, and then the lower is they only got the English materials. So sending the English and the Spanish did help. So you can see that final column, the percent of Hispanic respondents that we ended up with was highest when we had English and Spanish language materials and when we included the immigration data point. And that was not true of the non-Hispanic sample. So the immigration data point did not perform better for the sample that was not flagged to be Hispanic. So a couple of final thoughts, conclusions. Our hope is that as we make all of these small changes that maybe move the needle by a half a point, 2 points. I think anybody in the room who's doing recruitment knows that is a huge difference. And we hope that as we're, combining all of these different, different tricks or methods for trying to target specific groups, that it can help us improve our recruitment and ultimately improve who is coming to the panel, improve our diversity, improve the composition of our panel. The targeting worked sometimes, but sometimes it didn't work quite as well for us. So for us, a big lesson is testing is really important. We can't just assume that we know what the right message is for a certain group of respondents. We also feel like less is probably more in terms of how we present information, keeping it short and concise. And that is my time. So thank you, everyone.